Welcome, everybody, to our Saturday morning webinar. My name is Judy Feldhausen, and I am being joined today by all of you and my co-host, the unbelievable Robert Wischmeier.
It's unbelievable. It's probably right. I'm not sure that that's in a good way, but thank you.
Well, absolutely. Well, welcome to our webinar today. And we are so, I don't know if the word is happy to talk to you about this, this subject today. We are going to do our leadership series, continuing with Simon Sinek's Start with Why. And this subject, the emergence of trust, it is a real challenging subject to talk about. One that I have really has put me in a conundrum for many, many years on how do you get someone to trust you? And I've actually been working on this personally, oh my gosh, for about 20 years since I started in direct sales, because I always felt it was really important. And Simon Sinek, of course, happens to agree with me, which is great to know, of course.
Well, how about Jeffrey? Is he learning to trust you finally after some 20-some years? Is that working out?
Yeah, we're working on that. We're working on
that.
Yeah,
but it is challenging. Some of the leadership development stuff that we've done over the last few years has been fairly easy and straightforward to talk about. Other things are a little bit more challenging. And just like Judy, as I was reading through this chapter, and I've read it a number of times, I kept thinking to myself, how are we going to do this? How are we going to put this into words? How are we going to talk about trust? Leadership development is all about, I think, learning from other people, learning skills, leadership skills from other people and other people's examples, things other people have done that show what the value is of trust. And so we're even going to do maybe a little reader's theater this morning if we can get away with it, Judy.
Absolutely.
Well, so let me start. Do you want me to start?
Yes, please start.
Well, okay, I'm just gonna do a little bit of reading here because I think it's fascinating reading. And through the years, we've touched on some of these subjects before, because a lot of leadership development books, self-help books, motivational books use the same individuals as examples because they're good examples. So I'm going to read a little bit here about Continental Airlines. We've talked a lot in the past about Southwest Airlines and Herb Kelleher and the things he's done. So I'm going to read a little bit here. It says, Simon Sinek writing says, if a company mistreats their people, just watch how the employees treat their customers. Mud rolls down a hill. And if you're the one standing at the bottom, you get hit with the full brunt. In a company, that's usually the customer. And throughout the 80s, this was the life at Continental Airlines, the worst airline in the industry, just absolutely the worst. He says, I could see Continental's biggest problem the second I walked in the door in February of 94. This is Gordon Bethune. He wrote a book about it called From Worst to First. He said it was a crummy place to work. Employees were surly to customers, surly to each other, ashamed of their company. And if you just can't have a good product without people who like coming to work. It just can't be done. And Herb Kelleher, the guy that turned Southwest around for, all those years ago and, 20 years as the head of Southwest, he had that notion that it's a company's responsibility to look after the employees first. Now, that's an unusual position to take as a CEO, but he said happy employees ensure happy customers. Happy customers ensure happy shareholders, and in that order. I've made that comment many times that leadership flows from the top down. It just does. When you're led in a company by somebody with vision and excitement and happiness. They're good to you. You feel it, and it makes a difference. Some would argue that the reason that Continental's culture was so poisonous was just because they were financially struggling. They'd tell you that, well, once we get profitable again, then we can take a look at things. That was basically the logic for years. Interesting enough, you guys, Continental Airline filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy twice in 8 years. They went through 10 CEOs in 10 years. 10 in 10 years, until in 94 when Bethune took over. They were losing $600 million a year. That's a lot. I don't know how it is for you guys, but that's a lot of money for us. But it didn't last long once Bethune arrived. Actually, the next year after he came to work for Continental, they made $250 million. But they made their greatest significant changes in their operation. The greatest gains were in a performance category that you really can't measure, and that's in trust. Judy?
Yeah, absolutely, Bob. You're right. You can't measure it. It's not, trust is not a checklist. And Simon Sinek actually talks about that. And as when I was on my trustworthy journey, that's what I tried to do. I tried to make a checklist. What makes me trustworthy? And Simon talks about, driven by others, things besides self-gain, being the transference of trust. That's what value is. And having the same values and beliefs as the person that you are talking to. But, fulfilling all of our responsibilities, he says, does not create trust. It's more of a feeling. It's not a rational experience. And we trust some people and companies, even when things go wrong, and we don't trust others, even though everything might have gone exactly as it should have. So a completed checklist does not guarantee trust. Trust begins to emerge when we have a sense that another person or organization is driven by things other than their own self-gain. I had somebody here 2 days ago, a serviceman in the house, and he was the owner of the company. I did not like him much before he walked in the door. I'd been dealing with his company for about 5 months, and I felt that he was not trustworthy, but his people were. Interesting. But when I talked to him for about probably an hour about just stuff, I got the feeling that he may be a trustworthy person, and I ended up giving him a referral to some challenges that he has in his organization to help him out, because he admitted he was having some problems, and he became a customer at the end of that hour, and he was able to service my challenge also. So, was it a checklist? Did we do things off of a checklist? No, we did not. But that transference of value came through during our conversation.
It's amazing. When I first started with Synergy Worldwide, I worked with an individual who's no longer with the company. That was always the biggest challenge I had working with him. I cared about him. He was super nice to me. He really was. And, he paid me a lot during those years as I kind of helped him get his organization moving forward and going, and, building brochures and DVDs and the kinds of things that we were doing for marketing back then. But I never really trusted him. There was always that little nagging thing in the back of my mind. And I liked his wife okay too, but she also was not trustworthy in an odd sort of a way. We cared about them, but it would just never go away. Well, all of that certainly came to light later on. But great leadership is not based just solely on great operational ability. And I think that's important to remember. Leading is not the same as being a leader. Being a leader means that you hold the highest rank. Sometimes you've earned it. Sometimes you're just lucky. Sometimes it's navigating internal politics, and we see that a lot in corporate. Leading, however, means that others are willingly follow you, not because they have to, not because they're paid to, but because they want to. I was thinking about Jesus Christ, how he was not a sheep herder. He was a shepherd. You know, people followed him. He was a shepherd. My son, James, works for a company out of, he works in Louisville, Kentucky. With this company, started out in Minneapolis. He went from Minneapolis to the Boston area, took over one of their big warehouses in Boston, got it turned around, just worked his tail off. I actually went back there and worked with him for a while a few years ago, spent 3 months back there with him. Then, because he had done so well, they offered him a position in just right outside of Little Rock, Arkansas, which, by the way, is a really lovely place. And he took over that warehouse, turned that warehouse around, got them going and profitable. Because of that, they offered him a position in Louisville, Kentucky, and they pay him a lot of money. He makes a lot of money with this company, but I'm not kidding you. It is the single worst company, the worst managed company I've ever seen in my life. It's everything that Simon Sinek tells you not to be. They pay the leaders, the managers of this company, they pay them very well. James makes a lot of money. They pay the employees minimum, and they work them to death. And those guys that work for my son, James, in all of these different warehouses that he's run for this company, those guys wouldn't give you 1 minute of overtime unless they're paid for it. When they hit that 5 o'clock button, those boys clock out and they walk out, and that's the end of the day. They hate the company they work for. My son doesn't like it either, but he makes so much money that he's not going to walk away, right? At least not right now with 4 kids to take care of. But the point is that, it doesn't matter how much money that a company may pay you. If it's a crummy place to work, you're never going to be happy. My son is never happy. I worry about that kid every single day. I mean, we literally, Bonnie and I say prayers, we pray every day. We pray for that boy every day. I sometimes worry he's going to have a heart attack or a stroke or something because he works so hard and the company is so crummy. Judy?
Wow. Well, and
it's just the culture of that company. That's what it boils down to.
You're really right. And your company it definitely is a culture. It's not just the product and services that is sold, and it's not just a skill set, but the people in the company have to believe what you believe to make it a long-lasting company, a place where the employees want to come and bring their own beliefs and values. And along with that comes not just trustworthiness, but the feeling that they really belong in the company. And once you belong to an organization, a business, whatever that is, you will do much more and go beyond where the normal person will go.
Well, it's just so true. While we were doing this or preparing for this and thinking about this culture within a company, interestingly enough, I thought of David Munoz. There's a picture of David at Synergy. We had an event there, and David was there. He had on a Synergy shirt. He always looks so nice anyway, always dresses nice. He's sharp. He's a handsome guy. And he had, they were giving out samples of product I can't remember if it was Slim Smart or if it was Biome Shake. I can't remember now. But David had 2 cups of that, one in each hand, 2 different flavors. And the photographer snapped a shot of David standing there with those cups of that protein drink in his hand, big smile on his face with a Synergy shirt on. And I thought to myself the first time I saw that, what David Munoz is such a great representative for our country. He's a poster child for Synergy worldwide. He's embraced the culture of the country, elite health, good products, good marketing, on and on and on. That culture. And I love that. I love that about David, that he has that representation. You see him standing in like when he'll post something, he's in a Synergy shirt with a container of Pro Arginine Plus and something behind him, a picture or something. I don't know. It does all of these funny ones too. But I love that. That's part of that culture of being part of Synergy Worldwide, is that you're part of a team, part of a group. I just think it's important. I love it. I just love it.
That is so true. And, when you're talking about a culture, we think about huge companies that create a culture, but let's bring it back home a little bit and look at the culture of your business, of what we do on a daily basis with each of our clients, and how we create that culture individually with each of the clients that we work with. Sometimes some of the conversations that I have with clients, it's all about helping them, but not necessarily with something that I can help them with their health. But, I really believe that that having a great culture includes a part of helping one another in every aspect of whatever they need, not necessarily the job that is right in front of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I wanted to do a little bit more reading. That's a great picture, by the way.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, well, it looks colder than Chicago, and Chicago's cold, right? There's the Great Lakes right there. So I wanted to do another little reader's theater here, because this is some interesting stuff. I mean, I think it is. In the early 20th century, the English adventurer Ernest Shackelford set out to explore the Antarctic, or Shackleton, excuse me. Ronald Amundsen, a Norwegian, had only just become the first explorer ever to reach the South Pole, leaving one remaining conquest, the crossing of the continent via the southernmost tip of the Earth. The land part of the expedition would start at the frigid Weddell Sea below South America and travel 1,700 miles across the pole to the Ross Sea below New Zealand. The cost, Shackleton estimated at the time, would be about $250,000. Now that was in the early of 20th century. The crossing of the South Polar Continent will be the biggest polar journey ever attempted. This was like 1913. The unknown fields in the world, which are still unconquered, are narrowing down, but there still remains this great work. So these guys had this great idea. They're going to get down there and they're going to cross 1,700 miles across the South Pole. Anyway, on the 15th of December, 1914, he and a crew of 27 men set out for the Weddell Sea on a ship called the Endurance. It was a 350-ton ship. It had been constructed with funds from private donors, the British government, and the Royal Geographical Society. And by then, World War I was raging in Europe. The money was growing more and more scarce. Even donations from English school children paid for the dog teams. Isn't that interesting? This guy he knew how to get money. He got little kids out there buying your dogs for you. But the crew of the Endurance would never reach the continent of Antarctica. Now, here's the interesting part of this. They put all this work together to get there. Just a few days out of South Georgia Island in the southern Atlantic, the ship encountered mile after mile of pack ice and was soon trapped in winter as winter moved in, and with fury. Ice closed in around the ship like an almond in a piece of toffee. Shackleton and his crew were stranded in the Antarctic for 10 months as the Endurance drifted slowly north, until the pressure of the ice floes finally crushed the ship. In November of 1915, they watched as she sank. The ship just sank, got crushed. Anyway, stranded on the ice, the crew of the Endurance boarded their 3 lifeboats and landed on tiny Elephant Island. And there, Shackleton left behind all but 5 of his men and embarked on a hazardous journey across 800 miles of rough seas to find help, which eventually they did. The thing that makes this story so remarkable is that throughout the whole ordeal, no one died. No stories of people eating others, and no mutiny. And it wasn't luck. It was because he hired good fits. He found the right men for the job. Listen to this, you guys. Here is the here's the ad that Shackleton ran to find his crew. And this is key. This is talking about finding the people that believe what you believe. Here's what his ad said. Men wanted for hazardous journey, small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger, safe return doubtful, honor and recognition in case of success. What an ad. Those are the guys he was looking for, right? And that's how it is that when they were stranded and stuck for all that long period of time, there wasn't any mutiny. They knew what they were getting into. He hired the right people for the journey. And you don't hire for skills. This is something Herb Kelleher used to say about Southwest Airlines. You don't hire for skill, you hire for attitude. You can always teach skills. Years ago, and that's all I'm going to say about Shackleton and that great voyage, but finding the people that believe what you believe, hiring people for their attitude is key. A number of years ago, over in Montana, I'd been working in the LTL freight business for many years. I was operations director for a company called Fortman Truckline out of Missoula, Montana. And I'd been working there and doing that work for a long time. It paid well. It was a great job. I loved it. Frankly, I loved it. I love equipment. I love trucks. I love that kind of stuff. And but the company sold, and it sold to another company. I was familiar with the company that bought us out. But part of the deal selling our company was that my friend Bob Olson and I both had to go to work for the company buying us out. We had to go to work for them. That was just part of the deal. And so I was instantly the supervisor for this company that bought us out. But I was not happy. I didn't enjoy it one bit. And after several months had gone by and figured out their system and got things moving forward for that company, I happened to be talking to a friend of mine who lived in Hamilton, Montana, where we lived, and he owned a title insurance company. His name was Ken Cannonwisher. He's a good friend. And I was in his office one day. I was getting ready to head up to Missoula to the freight dock where I worked. And I mentioned to Ken, I said, it's so quiet in here. What a lovely place to work. Because, the kind of work that we did was noisy and cold and constant movement and heavy lifting all day, every day. It was just like being in a gym all day, stripping trailers and loading trucks and whatnot. And I said, Ken, if you ever need anybody here, give me a call. Well, I wasn't young at that point in time. And he looked at me for a moment and he said, how soon can you start? And I said, are you serious? And he said, yeah. How soon can you start? I said, Ken, I don't know the first thing. I don't know anything about what you do here in your office. I just happen to notice it's a nice place. It's quiet and cerebral. Everyone's kind to each other and you work hard, but it's quiet. And he said, no. He says, I don't care whether you know anything about this business. I can teach you, but I need someone like you in this office right now. He said, I've been putting off trying to put somebody on. I haven't been able to find the right person. You're the right person. How soon can you start? And so it didn't have a thing to do with my knowledge or anything else about title work or research or any of that kind of business. It had everything to do with my personality and who I was as an individual and my attitude. He hired me on the spot. And I said, well, I've got to make X amount of money and I need this much vacation and my medical insurance. And whatever I said, he's like, yeah, absolutely. No problem. No problem. No problem. And 2 weeks later, I walked into that office and went to work. Worked there for years after that. Judy?
That's a great story, Bob. And it's so true. Simon says that great companies don't hire skilled people and motivate them. They hire motivated people and inspire them. And that's really what happened with you is we all know that you are very motivated in whatever you do. And it's a good leader can help that motivation and actually help direct it. When you are motivated by your why, success just happens. And many of us have heard this story about the two bricklayers. And, there's two bricklayers going to work every day. One of them is grumbling and, complaining about the heat and, what he has to do and how heavy the bricks are and just anything that he can complain about while he's laying bricks the other day. The other bricklayer is actually kind of humming and enjoying himself and, enjoying the weather, no matter what it is, because he has different inspiration. Finally, the angry bricklayer said to the happy bricklayer, "Come on, man, what is this? Why are you so happy all the time?" He said, "Well, you're laying bricks, but I am building a cathedral." And that ability to look at the why of what you're doing something, it's not just success, it becomes a way of life.
It's so touching, that whole story. When I read that for the first time, I couldn't help but think about a book. I think it was called The Pillars of the Earth. It was about the stonemasons that built the cathedrals in England. And those cathedrals took, decades, to build some of them, and carving and all of the beautiful architecture involved. And the difference between, how those men approached their job and those men that were totally inspired by the concept of building a cathedral, a lasting cathedral. What an interesting concept. Judy, we're kind of running out of time. What do you think? Let me just share really, there you go. Trust. I was going to say something about the Wright brothers. We've talked about the Wright brothers before, about, what was his name? Langley. What was his first name? Samuel Pierpont Langley. How the War Department gave Langley $50,000 to build an airplane, to get something going, a flying machine. And he put together this remarkable bunch of people and everything. The press followed him everywhere he went. And at the same time, there was Wilbur and Orville Wright in Dayton, Ohio. And they were funded by their bicycle shop and just a bunch of their friends. Not one person on the Wright brothers team working on trying to create a machine that would fly. Not a one of them had a college education. In fact, a lot of those kids didn't even graduate from high school. But the group that was funded by the government, they were looking for fame and fortune, and they wanted to be first. You look at that other group of people, the Wright brothers, and all of those folks that helped them to put that first little flying machine together. They had a why. They knew what they were doing. They knew that if they could get that thing off the ground, if they could get a plane in the air, get things going, that it could change the world. It could change everything. They were motivated by that. They'd go on a practice run. They would take enough parts with them so they had 5 different sets of parts, because they knew they were going to fail every time they went out. So they had to bring all of these extra parts with them again and again and again. The guy that was motivated by fame and wealth versus the guy that's motivated by belief, hugely different. Why makes all the difference, Judy? Why we do.
It's so true. And, when you trust someone, you have to know that they are reliable, that you are protected. I mean, just think about all these people that give us their credit card numbers, and they're trusting us to not, use their credit cards. And it's all about the greater good. And I really believe that our synergy business is about the greater good. It's about helping people with their health, but it's even more than that. At least it is for me, that in order to do the greater good, you have to have your health. So it is trust. It is connected to each other, and we really rely on each other when there is trust. And it's just like, this picture here where this high wire purse artist has a net beneath him. That doesn't mean he's not capable, but he has a net, and And having someone to trust is like having a net underneath you that in case something happens, you are protected. There's a way that you will survive and go forward. So, it's such a huge thing, trust.
Yeah. You also have to have a screw loose to do what that guy's doing. I don't care who you are. That is so unnatural to me, I'm telling you. But I think about this in terms of the company that we represent, Synergy Worldwide. We trust Synergy. We do. Have you ever had your check not get there on time? It's always on time. In fact, it's often early. The pay, we get paid on the 15th, but oftentimes we get paid on the 13th. We trust Synergy. We trust Nature Sunshine. We just do. We trust quality control. We trust our products. Trust is a remarkable thing. It allows us to rely on others. We rely on those we trust for advice, helping us make decisions. It is the bedrock for the advancement of our own lives, our families, our companies, our societies, our species, really. We trust one another. You look at the political scene today, I don't care what side of the political spectrum you fall down on, nobody trusts anybody anymore. Do you trust the news? Which news channel do you trust? You can't trust, well, anyway, we're not going to get into that, but real trust comes from things you can't see, Judy. I'm going to leave it at that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for stopping there, because we could certainly go down a rabbit hole. But we get trust oftentimes from the influence of others. Those recommendations. Celebrities endorsing, whether you believe in what they're endorsing or not, a lot of people follow celebrity recommendations. And in your business, when you look at it, you are the celebrity in your area of expertise. And so you really have to take that as a responsibility and to work with the trust of your customers, your clients, and believe in what Synergy is doing. Because it really, that emergence of trust, it's just not one or two people involved. It is really the culture, the company, and the entire influence of the people that are influencing you and you are influencing. So you really can't see trust.
You can't see it, but you can sure feel it. That's for sure.
That's for sure.
Thank you, Judy. That's what I had prepared for today, guys. I don't have anything else for this webinar. Do you have any questions or comments or thoughts this morning?
So Bob and Judy, thank you. Great presentation. Having been on both sides of the equation of employing people as well as being employed by others, as I've tried to teach my kids, if you do a good job, show up on time, and have a good attitude, you'll most likely will advance in the company that you're with. And you'll most likely, if your options are open, other people will want to hire you away. And it's a lot of what you talked about today really comes down to that aspect, because then your employer, or if you're employing someone like that, you can trust them to do the job because you can always learn the skills. It's the attitude that the people come with that is key to whether you want to keep them around or not.
It's so true. Thank you.
It absolutely, and to have that attitude in our business, I mean, to me, it's just so much fun. I do little cooking things on social media, and I've been getting phone calls. Yeah, the other day I got a phone call saying, "Oh my gosh, your sweet potato, Popeye sweet potatoes, we are addicted to them." I have another guy that called me and said, your holiday broccoli salad I made for Christmas for my girlfriend, and I don't know how to cook. And those little things build trust with each other. So these people, I'm referring to them. Isn't that strange? But, they're showing their trust in me, and I, in turn, have a relationship and a trustworthy relationship with them.
Yeah, it's great stuff. I was working on a house for a friend of mine here, doing some finish work for him. And he had this, it's a gorgeous custom built home. And it has a giant front door. This thing's like 10 feet tall. You guys have seen those giant front doors before, with a really elaborate locking system. And he bought the house used, and he didn't have the lock set kit for that giant door. And so he bought some parts. I happened to go over there one day. He handed me the parts and he said, "Fix this door, would you?" I've never fixed a door like that in my life, but he completely trusted that I could do it. I remember I sat down on his porch. I looked at that door for a long time, trying to figure out, now, how in the world does this work? I got it. I sat there long enough, studied it through long enough. And I said to him, I said, "D, that took me a long time to fix that door." I said, I apologize, but I had to figure that out. And he said, if I'd have hired a locksmith to come out here, that locksmith would have told me, "No, let's just take it completely apart and put everything new in there, start over." He said, "It would have cost me hundreds of dollars for a locksmith." He said, "You saved me money. Thank you for doing it." Just complete trust that I could figure out how to do that system for him. And that's a big deal when you trust the people who come to work for you. It makes a lot of difference.
It does. It does. And any other questions or comments?
Hey, this is David. Good morning.
Good morning,
hey, David.
Hey, thank you for the shout out, Bob. I appreciate that. And listen, I just wanted to compliment you on the talk. And one of the things that really resonates with me from what you guys said is that in every situation where there is a building of trust, especially the example that Bob gave of Continental Airlines and the company that he went to work with, where you were hired with no job knowledge, that was so resonating for me, because it involves change. And when trust is lacking, then change comes in, and it happens so often that, it reminds me of my corporate world when I was back in working in the corporate world in the banks, and I would come in not knowing too much about the departments. So you have to learn the operations, when it's a new environment. And like Bob was saying, sometimes I'd walk into an environment and there was a toxic environment. I remember one time when I was working in the office in a new department, the people had a habit of shouting when they needed something across the whole room. "Hey, would you bring me that?" And that's one of the first things I did. I got everybody together. I said, "There'll be no more shouting in this department. You pick up your phone and you talk to someone," and it was amazing, the culture that needed to change in order for us to be more professional and more disciplined. And sometimes, Bob, unfortunately, it involved, my responsibility was to bring a change in, and sometimes it will involve getting some people out of there and other people in. And it was interesting when the first person left, how everybody else would say, "Boy, we better change, or we may be next." So it's a healthy thing when you realize that even in our own business, if something's not working, it needs to change. So I really, really enjoyed this. So thanks, guys.
You bet. David, I think, if I remember right, when Herb Kelleher took over Southwest Airlines all those years ago, I think they were out of San Antonio, if I remember right. He fired 39 people, if I remember that right. People just did not want to change. "I don't like what you're doing. Good. See you later." And brought in some new people. A lot of people stayed. But yeah, sometimes you have to play hardball, but that's okay too.
But it works. Yep.
Works. Yeah. It's leadership. That's what these webinars are about. It's leadership development.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks, Judy.
Thank you. Anything else before we say goodbye today?
Just might mention, Dan Norman is going to join our Monday morning call in a couple of days. He's going to talk to us a little bit about what's going on in the Asian markets. you know, his vision, his insight, you know, with all that's gone on with China and everything else. He's over those areas. So he's going to join us Monday morning. Should be a really interesting call. That'll be at 7:30 a.m. Mountain Time, Monday morning. Love to have you join us. So join us. It's going to be great. Thanks, Judy.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Good morning.
All right.
Donald,
Okay, thanks, Donald.
I always love this webinar between you two. It always brings back memories of how we shared this book together earlier. And Bob, your nuggets are always on point. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Donald.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Excellent as well, Judy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Take care. Have a great weekend.